What's up everyone, back again with a quick small meta discussion today, just discussing the ability patch, which is a new item in the Crown Tundra DLC, which allows you to change your Pokemon's ability to their hidden ability. Now, why this is super important is previously some Pokemon's hidden abilities weren't released, so now we have access to those. But also, and probably more importantly, some Pokemon's old moves, be it through old events or just old generations, their moves are incompatible with their hidden ability. So we're going to be discussing some of those today and what kind of effects I think they're going to play on the Monotype meta. So first of all, apologies for not uploading much lately. As I said in my previous video, I'm kind of waiting for the meta to settle down. So bans have started to be implemented now, so I've started playing the tier again some more, and I have been testing these in practice, and some of them are really fun, so I wanted to kind of share that with you today. But on top of that, I will be hopefully starting my Monotype showcases again soon. So first up, let's jump into Clefable. So Clefable, previously in the generation, I don't think had too big of a role in a Mono Fairy team. I don't think it just didn't have a strong niche, but now I think it does with Unaware. So Unaware was always an ability Clefable could run, but now it can be run alongside Soft Boiled. So what Unaware lets you do is completely ignore stat changes when taking or doing damage. So this is really good for like the Dragon Dancers in the tier, the Swords Dancers, the Nasty Plotters, Shell Smashers, all that kind of stuff in the tier. Clefable can just come in and just say, no, you're not saying it in my face, it doesn't matter because I don't take extra damage from you. So that's going to be super good, especially against, as I said, Shell Smashers can be quite potent. There's a few Swords Dancers in the tier that obviously are going to give you a lot of hassle if they Swords Dance up in your face, but Fairy as a type can kind of be a bit of a momentum sink. It often lacks a lot of good pivot moves like U-turn, flip turn, vault switch, all that kind of good stuff. It doesn't necessarily have access to all those kind of stuff. So having that defensive anchor of Clefable to just come in and just deny setup is super, super important. And it can be run alongside Soft Boiled now, which is really good. So this lets you heal 50% of your HP. This is so much better than Moonlight, because previously we had to run Moonlight, which is half your HP or more in some weather conditions or less in other weather conditions. But what really makes this suck is it's only 8 PP, while Soft Boiled is 16, so it can be used twice as much, which is just vitally important. Now previously we had to run Wish Protect, which takes up 2 movesets, so if maybe we wanted to run Protect here and Wish here, that's kind of annoying because it takes up 2 move slots. Now we can just have that in one nice package of Soft Boiled, and with this, you saw a second ago, we can run some nice team support with like Thunder Wave or maybe Stealth Rock. And then on the offensive side, we could run Moonblast because it's just pretty nice stab and decently strong. And if you're worried about the steel types in the tier, we can run Flamethrower alongside it, or we can even run like Knockoff for team support. This thing can generally just be really good, kind of a momentum drain for your opponent as opposed to a momentum gain for you. So what I like to do is just kind of come in and say stop gaining momentum, just stop right there with the setup, and it's going to be completely unaffected by it, and then just gain some good team support with, as I said, like Stealth Rock, Knockoff, Thunder Wave, all that kind of good stuff. So I definitely have used Clefable a good bit. I think it's really, really fun on the Fairy team and provides that really important anchor. Now it has great HP to begin with, but on top of that, it has decent defenses. You can run max special defense for a nice 306, or you can run maybe max defense for a slightly more mixed 269, 216 build, which can nicely eat a lot of hits from like Swords Dancers or Dragon Dancers, especially because it denies that setup. Now item wise, we can run like Leftovers, or if you really want Rocky Helmet for example, if you want to punish those physical attackers. Or maybe Heavy Duty Boots if you want to bluff the Magic Guard. So just generally some really nice stuff you can run there. Now you do kind of have to worry about Toxic on this build because it can be worn down by passive damage like that, but Fairy does have some good access to Heal Bell, Aromatherapy and the likes, and I believe Clefable itself gets Heal Bell if you really, really want that. So it could be quite fun. So next up we have Heatra, and previously for some reason Heatran's hidden ability Flame Body was just nowhere to be seen, and I'm not exactly sure why it was never released, but it wasn't. But now we can run Flame Body, and while it isn't too huge on a on a steel team, because we generally would prefer Flash Fire to have that immunity to one of your only 3 weaknesses. It's such an important defensive core on the team. But we do have Flame Body now, which is good for a fire team, because in general we're not too worried about fire attacks on a fire team, because most of your team is resistant or if not neutral to your fire. So in general, fire is not much of an issue. and it can't be burnt anyway. So I don't think Flash Fire is ever the best ability, though it definitely does have its niche. I think Flame Body is going to be really nice. So what Flame Body will allow it to do is kind of just take things like U-turn or flip turn, for example, or any kind of physical attack, and have a 30% chance to burn the opponent, which is really good. So for anyone who's ever fought like Poison Point or Static or Flame Body itself, pretty much knows it's almost 100% chance. It's just for some reason always seems to activate, against me anyway. Maybe I'm just unlucky, but that's going to be super nice, especially on like multi-hit moves that hit multiple times. For example, Dual Wing Beat. If your opponent wants to Dual Wing Beat you, they have a twice chance of being burned by Flame Body, especially if you're running like Air Balloon. Oftentimes the Pokemon will have to make contact with you to try and break your balloon, which again means they have to risk being hit by Flame Body, which is really nice. Now this thing already has great defenses, having decent HP and fantastic special defense, or fantastic defense if you want to go down that route. But I think more Heatrans typically run specially defensive, and this is nice to bolster its defenses because the Flame Body can potentially burn, which halves your opponent's physical attacks, effectively making Heatran a lot more defensive. Moveset wise, you can still run Taunt and Magma Storm, which are really good like wall breaking or stall breaking ability, which is super nice. We can run Scorching Sands, which allows you to have another chance to burn your opponents, so they have to run a check to not be burnt by Flame Body and then run a check not to be burnt by Scorching Sands. It is that small bit weaker than Earth Power, but it could also be really, really nice. And finally we have like things like Stealth Rock, or we have Toxic. So in general, I think this Pokemon is really good on a fire team and is only going to get better in my opinion thanks to Flame Body. Next up we have Octovish. So Octovish and Octozalt actually both got the same ability, Slush Rush. So what Slush Rush does is it lets you double your speed while Hail is active. And this is going to be pretty good because their speed is not impressive. Invested only 209 with a neutral nature, which is not very good. And I wouldn't say it's worth running Choice Scarfs on these things because with Choice Scarf they're barely hitting over 300, which is not going to outspeed anything meaningful in the tier, to be quite honest. However, with Slush Rush it can be a decent bit faster, hitting 418 speed, both of them hitting 418 speed, which is quite nice. And why these things are really good is with their signature moves, Vicious Rend and Bolt Beak. These are both 85 base, which is pretty decent as it is, and they are both boosted by their respective stab of Water and Electric. However, these moves double in power if you hit the target before the target moves. So everyone's probably fought Dracovish and realizes how ridiculously good Dracovish is. Now, I'm not saying these guys are going to be the new Dracovish. They're not going to be. They're going to be a bit more niche than that. They don't have the strong jaw boosted power that Dracovish has the access to, but they definitely will have a niche on the Ice team. So, especially Octovish's part water typing, Vicious Rend can go a long way to absolutely tear through fire types, except for like Volcarona, for example, or Volcanion, sorry, my bad, who will eat it with Water Absorb. But other than that, the Vicious Rend can easily tear through a lot of fire types, which is naturally a type that Ice has a problem with. Thanks to its part water type typing, it can take neutral damage from steel and fire, which is quite nice. Other move wise, we have Super Fan, which can be okay against something like a wall like Toxapex, for example. If you want to run your own Hail, you can. So if your Hail runs out from your Alolan Ninetales, for example, you can set up your own Hail again. Or if you have an extended Hail over extended Aurora Veil, we can run Aurora Veil on this thing to give the team further support. So I forgot to mention both of these things' defenses are bolstered massively when you take into account that they're going to be behind a veil most of the time on an Ice type team, which is super good. Other than that, these things can also run a Freeze Drive, for example, if you are particularly worried about like ground types or ground water types that are going to eat your Vicious Rend with like Water Absorb, or the water dragons in the tier like Dracovish or Kingdra. Freeze Dry can absolutely destroy those, and you could potentially just run like a minor special defense nature to forgo a bit of special defense just to have that extra bit of oomph on your Freeze Dries. So Octozalt is very similar to Octovish, however its electric typing means it won't be able to hit those bulky it will be able to hit bulky water types in the tier, but not be able to hit ground types, which shouldn't be an issue for Ice types because we have Ice Will Crash. This gives this thing the most wonderful Bolt Beam coverage of electric and ice, which hits so many types and so many Pokemon in the tier for at least neutral damage and a lot for super effective damage. Not to mention both these things are stab, which is super good. Now, much like Octovish, this thing can run its own hail if it really wants to. Unfortunately, it doesn't have access to Aurora Veil. As you can see here, it's not legal. But we can run something like, I had an idea in mind. Oh yeah, we can run Freeze Dry again if you are really worried about those water ice type, water ground types or water dragon types. Or we can run Thunder Wave, which is really good for team support, which is what I've been running. So what this has to do is Thunder Wave like a Choice Scarfer, and even with your kind of poor 418 speed, your decent speed of 418, it's not going to outspeed many Choice Scarfers. However, after a Thunder Wave it probably will, which is super nice. Other than that, if the hail is going to end or the hail is over, for example, you can just click Thunder Wave and paralyze your opponent, which is great team support. And finally, Bolt Beak in general is just very nice for dealing with things like Toxapex or other bulky water types who can go a long way to wall out your team. So next up we have Dragonite, and I don't think Dragonite's going to be playing a huge part, which is kind of why it wasn't in the thumbnail. I think Dragonite and Licky are more kind of afterthoughts of this video, but I do think they certainly have a role in the team. So Dragonite and Licky both now have access to their hidden abilities, which are Multiscale and Cloud9 respectively, alongside their attack Heal Bell. So Heal Bell is pretty good as a team support option because it cures your party of all status conditions. Now I don't see this having too much usage on a flying team, for example, but I can see it having some use on a dragon team. So Dragonite could be a good cleric on a dragon team. It can come in and maybe your Garchomp or your Kyurem got burnt by a random Scald, or your Hydreigon got paralyzed by a Thunder Wave, or maybe your Pokemon stood on a Toxic Spikes and suddenly is going to start racking up damage. Well, you can just take in Dragonite and Heal Bell that and all your worries are gone. Dragon in general is a very aggressive, hyper-offensive team, I think, and having access to Heal Bell is super nice because status is one of the ways many defensive teams deal with those kind of hyper-offensive teams. So you can nicely clear those off. It can be run alongside maybe things like Roost and Defog for further team support, so Defog can clear away hazards, which kind of annoy dragon types, especially like Stealth Rocks, Sticky Webs. They don't like those, and they don't have the best access to defoggers. So Dragonite could definitely defog away those. And with Multiscale and the new heavy duty boots, it's not going to take any damage from swapping on entry hazards, so it can pretty much always live and attack thanks to Multiscale and is quite bulky. So Multiscale will help it live and attack nicely enough and get your Heal Bell off, or you can potentially Roost back up into your Multiscale range and suddenly you're doing fine and dandy again. You have good HP and you're back in the Multiscale range. Now, as I said, I don't think it's going to see too much usage on Flying because I think Flying in general is a bit more balanced and has access to its own good recovery through things like Roost, but I do think Dragon does lack that kind of clerical support. As for Licky could be interesting because Cloud9 completely ignores all weather effects, and what this lets it do is completely ignore things like Growth in the Sun, Chlorophyll. Weather Ball is no longer boosted by its weather effect. It's now a 50 base move that's not even boosted at all, so Licky can easily absorb those, especially for weather heavy teams. Maybe a Barraskewda is trying to waterfall your entire team. You can just take a Licky and basically say, no, there's no more water boost in Waterfall, which is really good. And probably most importantly, in the Mono Ice matchup, if you see a Alolan Ninetales come in or any other Aurora Veiler come in, you can take in Licky and your Aurora Veil is actually going to fail because the Cloud9 basically acts as if the hail is not there. And that is kind of like the cornerstone of all Ice Mono teams playstyles, so denying that is super big. As well as that, I believe it ignores the special defense boost you get from Sandstorm if you're a rock type, so if you are running a special attacking Licky, which I'm not right here. Now, what good Heal Bell does is, it can be really good so you can play more aggressively with things like Ditto, for example. You can run your Ditto and say you don't have to worry about being burned or paralyzed or poisoned, or even slept or anything of the likes, because Heal Bell will nicely be able to cure that back. And I forgot to mention, Heal Bell actually works really well with Rest as well. If you have a Pokemon on your team whose recovery option is resting, you can come in and Heal Bell that off and they're suddenly awake again, which is super nice. You can also now Wish Pass, which is good because Licky has a ton of HP, being able to Wish Pass into some of your weaker Pokemon, because that's going to heal about 221 212 HP from a Pokemon you swap into, which is a huge chunk for a lot of Pokemon, especially more offensive ones. It can run alongside like Knockoff, for example, for team support and for hitting ghosts super effectively, or you can run Body Press, meaning you don't have to invest anything in your attacking stats, and suddenly your Body Press is still going to hit things like Rock types, like Steel types pretty nicely. So I do think Licky is not going to be meta-defining by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think normal is starved for choice this generation. Unfortunately, didn't get a whole lot back in this DLC, so I think it's going to have to get creative, and I do think Licky could see some good usage. So I'm looking forward to trying it out myself, and maybe hopefully some people watching this will be inspired to make a normal team with Licky on it. So that is going to be it for me today. As I said earlier, I will get back to making more Monotype showcases soon enough. If you have any teams that you'd like to share with me or discuss, the Discord is linked down below, so definitely feel free to join that just to have some casual chats about Pokemon, games, just stuff in general. So definitely feel free to do that. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and if you did, let me know in the comments, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff helps me out absolutely massively. I really do appreciate it. And if you like this kind of content, let me know, because I've been thinking of doing like a hidden gems Monotype videos where I kind of focus on one lesser thought of Pokemon and a type and kind of discussing what usage they'd have on their type or types. So that's going to be it for me today. I hope you have a fantastic day, and take care everyone. Thanks for watching.